A society in which women cannot realize their full potential loses out on the significant potential for innovation, economic growth, and job creation. For instance, a recent study showed that in India, measures close to a gender gap could lead up to 6.8% gain in the GDP. So here we have 4 strong women on the panel to discuss the criticalities of this topic. I would like to call upon Ms. Meghana, founder chairperson of Fountainhead Global School and Colleges, Ms. Madhuri Duggirala, Senior Director, Google India, Ms. Sinduri Reddy, Managing Director at Premier Academy, and Ms. Kirti Vemuri, a young entrepreneur. Can I have all of you on stage, please?
A society in which women cannot realize their full potential loses out on a significant potential for innovation, economic growth, and job creation. You will find that India's startup trend is seen to be dominated by men. India's business environment is not conducive for women entrepreneurs owing to several social, economic, and financial barriers that they face. But it's no fun if you don't try other options once you know they exist. I'm Kirti Vemuri, and I'll be moderating the panel today. So my statement begs the question, what are the challenges that you faced while starting a business, especially having a tough skin and overcoming social acceptance, being a woman in the entrepreneurship industry?
Thank you for asking that question. I think every time when there's a woman who's getting into entrepreneurship, there's this mindset that they think that it's a short-lived or short-term project. It takes a lot of time for people to accept that, women can do something sustainable, long-term, and they aspire to be better than the rest. So when it comes to me, I'm into schools, so that's like one of the most welcoming platform for women to be part of entrepreneurship is to get into education, because they're perceived to be someone who's serious in giving or imparting education, especially when it comes for the younger generation. But in my journey, what I've seen is that this was like way back in 2010 when I moved back to India and started the school. We were trying to introduce Android solutions in the school, and most of the parents who were part of the industry, the technical industry, couldn't actually accept it, saying that because the Android solutions were kind of not very popular during that time, so we were trying to use those to teach phonetics. So they were like, how can you integrate that, or why do we have to integrate technology as early as this? So we were like using a lot of technical platforms, and then we were trying to communicate with them through like mails and all of that, but they still insisted that they have the written note from the teacher going back home. And not just that, we've invited people from across the world to come and interact with students, because I somehow felt school is a platform where it should reduce the walls between the actual society and in an environment where they can actually learn safely. Because all my learning, I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody here, all my learning throughout my school and college did not prepare me to face this life outside that. And at every step, it was like, I was surprised and shocked to understand the ways of life. And then I would start questioning my grandparents, because I grew up with my grandparents. Whatever you taught me doesn't exist in this world, especially not in the world that I know of. And then, but they said keep some patience, have some patience, and then you will know. So even till today, when we were, we were the first school to be mentioned by Google for education, because I was helping a lot of women to come online with Google. So Google said that what can we do for you, Meghana? Then I said, we don't have a platform for education. This was in 2012. So they said, what do you want a platform for? I said, a platform where you can actually, because a physical school will be able to reach only to so many people, right? So I said, okay, all the good practices of the schools can be shared on this particular platform. So anybody from any other place can pick those things and actually, include that as part of their school curriculum. And then I said, most of the time what I see or what I've seen was most of my teachers were quite young mothers, and there was an important class that they have to take on a particular day, and the same day their child is sick. So why can't they be in two places? Why can't we use technology? And then, because when I invite people from across the world to use a hangout and come and interact with students, why can't my teachers use a platform where they can actually teach their class or finish that work on a given particular day in spite of them not being around and physically at school? They really liked it. And they said they were building something, but they said after I think 5 or 6 months, they surprised me saying that here is the platform for Google for Education. And I know it was new then, and whenever I would talk about technology or integrating technology as part, because I'm not a technical person, so don't take me wrong, because I'm not a technical expert, but maybe my interest in how do I solve certain things or how do I make it better for this generation students. So I learn these things and then I try and impart these things again. So from there, whenever I would speak on different platforms saying that, as school heads, let us look into technology as an area that we'll have to invest on. Let's empower our teachers. People used to mock, saying that, just because she's come from London or because she's a new school, is she going to teach us? We are a 30-year-old school, we are a 100-year-old school. All these years we've imparted education better than anybody else, and I'm not going to, buy this particular thing. So these were certain hurdles that I faced, including the recent one that we were, thanks to pandemic that everybody's mindset has moved to a better place. I'm sorry about the pandemic, but then yes, but it did help a lot of educationalists to come onto that particular platform saying that yes, technology plays a major role, because I remember parents saying that I don't want my child to be looking at a screen, but as long as you have a tap on how much time you allow your child, and if it is constructive, why are they looking at the screen? Are they learning something from that? Is absolutely fine than just, without any idea that they're looking at it for hours together. So these are certain things, as I completely agree with one of the parent who was here saying that, their friends wouldn't agree of help or giving their children screens. But do we have any other choice escaping technology in this current world? I doubt. So when I was teaching children about, citizenship skills recently, about a year and a half ago, when we were reviving the lake, there were a lot of people who thought that, they're trying to grab it, rather than thinking it's a learning platform where my child will be able to learn how this society actually works. So I think entrepreneur journey itself has a lot of, areas that we face on a day-to-day basis that we learn from.
Thank you for the answer. Does anyone else want to share their thoughts?
I think Meghana definitely has shared a lot of great thoughts already. But firstly, huge thanks to Pawan and Disha for giving this opportunity here to come and share our thoughts. And please give a good round of applause to Pawan and Disha for all the great work they're doing. Today I am here to share my thoughts as a woman, as a leader, as a mother of twins, who I'm very proud that they are also students of Metamorphosis. I think the only few things I would add to what Meghana has said is 2-3 things about, I think Kirti rightly asked about tough skin. All said and done, it is not easy for women because we don't have the equal playing field all the time because of all the stereotypes and biases. So for me, first, I have a huge respect for men in the corporate world and the industries. But early on in my life, I decided not to be a man in this world. I want to be a woman in the world. And I've decided to do that early on, and that actually people think that's not a way to be successful, but I think that's much easier to be successful. Second is, it is harder. It sometimes feels like uphill battle. I was part of a few startups or a few corporates where I think the expected behavior is probably you have to be that alpha male personality, you have to be aggressive all the time. But I have had a lot of successes by being more an influencer, by being more on the inspirational side. So I feel that tough skin doesn't necessarily mean that you really have to be tough and be like others. My learning is be like yourself, be a woman. And I wear emotions on my sleeve all the time because I actually think emotions are a great blessing as well. And the third stereotype I see is whenever I went and worked in a startup or any corporates, if it is a major technical challenge, they would like, are you sure you can do it? But then I had to remind themselves, I'm a computer science engineer from a top school in India. I'm very capable of doing tough things. So it took few years for me to learn how to say that don't discriminate based on the gender. I do think that, I think all of us are very capable of doing things. So my learnings, Kirti, is be yourself, bring your whole self, and don't try to be like someone else. Be who you are. Success comes. There are biases and stereotypes, but face them and call them out.
Thank you so much. I love those insights. They're very real and raw, and you don't hear that a lot these days. So, of course, when you face roadblocks and challenges, you're going to face failures. You're not going to be able to overcome everything. So could you guys elaborate on a few failures you've faced? And of course, the journey isn't going to be easy. So could you tell our audience how you coped with them?
Good evening, everyone. And Disha, Pavan, phenomenal job what you'll have done here. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of this. So unheard stories, but I think the most important word there, failure, is probably my middle name. Yeah, but I wear that with pride. I think I adorn myself with that. I don't see it as something that pulls me back. Every time we fail, we don't start from nothing. We start from experience. So right now, we started a school last year and we got hit with COVID almost just 2 months into it. But everybody seems to think that's my biggest failure because we started and then we got hit with COVID. But before that, I was into 3 other businesses. We were into real estate and I started my company, went for hundreds of meetings for joint ventures, failed at almost every single one of those. And there was one deal that me and my partner were going to close, and it was pretty much the last day where we would say, okay, we'll shake hands on this. And my son was hospitalized because of an infection he caught in the swimming pool. And I had to sit back from that meeting because he was in the hospital. And as typical gender stereotype, people came back and said, see, this is what women do. They back out for family. But I personally think family is strength and they give us the courage to move forward. So it's okay if you fail, it's fine. We haven't, success is not final and failure is never fatal. It's the courage to go on that counts. And I think all of us here have to embrace that. And that's what we have phenomenal schools right now. We have Keystone, we have Fountainhead, we have Indus, we have multiple schools, the Premier Academy where we've started as well. We emphasize a lot on this, that it's okay to fail. When you fail, you start from experience. And you have to start from experience again and again and again. Someone told me, you have to make good decisions in business. That's when you're successful. And then my dad told me that only by making wrong choices and bad decisions do you learn to be successful and to make the right choices. So fail fast, fail forward, and make sure you share that learning with someone else.
I think that was very insightful, especially coming from both a parent and an educator. I love to hear that you were still able to put family first and be successful. So, being the manager of Premia Academy, it's a huge role, and it's a role usually taken on by men. You don't see women in the managing role too much, and it's perceived that we're sensitive, and women will have a lower risk-bearing ability as compared to men. So what is your take on that?
Okay, flat out, I'm going to refuse. Okay, and I absolutely don't buy into the theory that we are less risk-taking. I think at every stage, we're more risk-taking, if anything. It could be something that's very cliched, but we walk into families that we don't even know and make it our own. I mean, how much more risk do you want us to take? Right? And then we almost gamble with our lives, our bodies, our health to make sure we bring new life into the earth. And then again, we're told that's part and parcel of your journey, that's not risk. I think that I had a very difficult pregnancy. I would go through all of it again for one more child. And I don't know how much more risk-taking we can be. And when it comes to business, I don't think that it's fair to stereotype us because we prioritize family. I think you should trust us with it because we prioritize family. If we took care of our families that well, how well are we going to take care of our businesses?
I'm speechless. That was an amazing answer. So, what are some suggestions you guys would suggest to give to young entrepreneurs to cope with fear? Because one of our topics today is uncertainty. And again, as being women, I keep reiterating that being in these positions means that people doubt us. So, what do you think, what message of advice would you give to young entrepreneurs as to how to cope with that uncertainty?
Yeah, maybe I can start and Meghana can add. I think I'll just build on what Sinduri said. Honestly, if you have not failed and if you don't want to fail, I definitely suggest that entrepreneurship is not for any one of us. Not only entrepreneurship, leadership is not for any one of us. And let me tell you a small story. I was part of a leadership curriculum and we had a venture capitalist come over for that curriculum. And he said, how many people in this room have failed? Like very few hands raised. And then the next question he asked was, okay, out of those who have failed, how many of you have learned how to be resilient and cope up from that failure? Just a few more hands raised. And he said, I'm going to invest on these people only. Because if you're always successful, people don't know that if you fail, and then would you even have the resilience to really cope up and stand? So that is first thing. I think somewhere, those of us who have taken the road of ups and downs of roller coaster, you have to trust us. You have to trust us when we say that failures are actually good. And second is, as a leader, I make a lot of decisions every day. But there is as an entrepreneur, as a leader, you always tend to think, let me get the perfect data. Let me then make the right decision based on all the data points I have. So you will make very far and few decisions. My learning is, it's better to make 100 decisions and 50 of them being wrong, but you have moved at a faster pace than wait for that perfect time to make a decision and to be right or wrong. Because like Sinduri said, it's better to take a decision and be wrong because that will help you make better decisions. So that's about second tip I would give. I think the third is, I would want everybody who's wanting to be an entrepreneur or leader in this room to really think about how do you lead a big transformation. A lot of you here really want to make an impact in the lives of people. So if you want to lead a transformation, you have to lead change, you have to really think big, and you have to really let a few failures or let a few things not go your way. I think the way to cope up with your fear is to have, for example, a board of directors whom you can go to, a few mentors whom you can rely on. Or the third thing is to figure out what are the few other things you're going to try out. I think these are a few learnings from my own journey of number of failures I can't even remember.
I agree completely with you both. And to add on to that, I want the younger generation not to be scared of that word failure, rather change its meaning to exposure. So, because until unless you don't go through that particular experience or an exposure, why coin it as failure? Rather use it as an exposure, so all this will add up to your success story in the future. And maybe learn to ask, like, to ask is a talent or is a skill that one has to develop in today's world. From where I come from, or the family background that I come from, you're not supposed to ask anything. You're supposed to do or imagine that someone needs something and just cater to that. But that's not going to work at all. Don't be, just be fearless to ask. Because until unless you don't ask, a lot of things don't fall into place. I think, overcoming that feeling of failure, rather than thinking that, okay, I'll have to go through an experience. It might be pleasant, it might not be that great, but I will be learning from that experience is something that I would strongly recommend, and asking for help. Whatever it is, when you have to do something, go ask for help. That is more important in today's world. I think you're pretty much sorted in the first phase, at least, in your journey. Thank you.
So I loved your perspectives about redefining failure and calling them exposures, because failures are definitely something different than exposure. And I think being an entrepreneur, failures are definitely something you'll encounter. So how do you guys, so most of you have families, right? So, and I've heard amazing, heartwarming stories about how you put family first. So how do you keep a balance of managing a family and running a business and keeping the core element of both stable?
I'll start with this and then I'll just hand it over. For me, I don't say that I am best at both. Yes, I'm part of a family and I'm part of a business too. So for me, it is all about prioritizing on that particular instance. So there are at times that where I'll have to prioritize my family over the business, and there are some times that I have to prioritize my business over the family. Because it's me there, it's me here too. Because, but at times that I'll have to make those choices, and to how do I prioritize whether this is more important over that. And I would always ask for help. In any case, let it be family or let it be business, I learn to ask for help so that I will be able to sort those things out faster.
So for me, whenever people ask me, who are you? Earlier I would say I'm Madhuri Duggirala. I studied in this institution. I am mother of so-and-so, or I am wife of so-and-so. But later I've also realized that Madhuri is beyond all these things. So now if someone asks me, okay Madhuri, who are you? I say I am an engineer by profession. I am a singer by passion. I am a globetrotter by interest. I am a social volunteer by choice. Because the reason I say this is, as women, we play many, many roles beyond just being at work or raising your family or doing other things as well. So for me, I'll tell you my 3-4 tips. First is balance is a myth. Balance never happens, right? It means your balance is always tilting one way or the other. So for me, it's always how do you integrate your life and your work. My first mantra of work is do what you love or love what you do. I don't stay in between in any job or anything. I'm either loving what I'm doing or doing what I'm loving. Second, for anybody who's contemplating if you have a family, would it be a deterrent? For me, actually, motherhood is a superpower. I'm a mother of 11-year-old twins. I have most of my success, most of my promotions, most of my leadership learning have become better after I've become a mother. So for me, actually, motherhood and leadership actually coexisted very, very well together. And like Meghana said, I have 3 things. First is, I'm very clear on my priorities. At any point of time, my priorities and choices are very clear between my kids and my health and my work and all of that. Second, I have learned not to manage my time, but manage my energy. I always manage my energy. See, time is, you have 24 hours. But what I can do in that 24 hours depends on my energy. So my physical, mental, emotional, spiritual energies. I have enough techniques I have learned over time to manage my energy. Third for me is focus on what you can control. I don't run behind things I cannot control. I will influence or I focus on what I can do. But let me tell you, everything I have said is not easy. You need rituals, you need practices, you need habits. And over the years, I've developed a lot of those things now. And last tip I specifically want to leave this for any young girls or women in the room is have passions. See, we are not just here to nurture a family, we are not just here to do a job. We also have to nurture our heart and soul. For me, that is music, that is mindfulness, that is social volunteering, because that's what nurtures Madhuri's soul. But yeah, in my roles, I'm happy to do my best in every role. Those were my ways of learning in life.
I couldn't agree more with what you said. I think most important for any of us here is to break away from the gender stereotypes. I think that's the basis of the fear that we feel. Everywhere I hear fear, it's because we have so many disempowering beliefs in our head. Once you let them go, then fear automatically fizzles out. That's my take on it. Just to give you an example, someone once asked me that this child's brother is an astronaut. There's one more astronaut in Finland. How is he related or she related to him? And almost instantly, everybody was like, father, grandfather, uncle. Because everybody believes an astronaut is a male. It was his sister. It could be the mother too. And I was one of them who said grandfather. That's the funny part about how our mental models work. We're so trained, so attuned into believing that we are second grade, that it manifests itself in so many different ways. And it's time that we broke away from it. If you see the number of people that have walked this journey before us, let's take some of the names that are very, very popular, right? Sheryl Sanders, let's take Indra Nooyi, let's take Kiran Bedi, let's take Indira Gandhi, let's take Priyanka Chopra. They've already walked the path for us. They've faced that fear, they've broken that glass ceiling. And I think as women, especially in the education industry, or all of us here who are sitting in seats of privilege, we stand on their shoulders. And we have to ensure that the fight doesn't stop here. Gender equality and the fear that we may not be equal is not a battle, it's a war. You have to win the war. For my daughter, for your daughter's daughter. We can't stop it here. And today, the battle is to believe that we are equal. Only when we hearts of hearts believe that we are equal, can we actually go out and perform. You know, everything else is a mental model. Like for instance, I'm going to give you a small snippet out of the book that I'm writing right now. It's called the Power Punch. And to have the power punch, you need 5 things in place. You need a purpose that you need to attach yourself to. You need partnerships that you can rely on. You need principles that are guiding you. You need persistence to stay in the game. And you need prudence to know right from wrong, to learn from your mistakes. And governing all of this, the palm that holds these 5 fingers together is positivity. And the minute you give in to fear, positivity goes away and everything that it's holding disappears into oblivion. So you want it, you have to, you should have that power punch, and that comes only from positivity. Either let your dreams go or let fear go. It's your choice.
Thank you so much for that insight. I really love what you guys said about your roles playing off each other so beautifully, because being a mother and being a businesswoman definitely gives you an edge on each other. And especially the 5 traits you mentioned, I think those are not just crucial to being an entrepreneur, but to being an amazing human. So to Miss Meghana Musunuri, are there any women-centric initiatives started by educationists at the school level to enhance women literacy rate?
Absolutely. All the private school owners educating all the girls in their schools is the biggest initiative of this country to bring more literacy into, and making this world more gender neutral, I can say. But I was reading about one initiative because, yes, government has a lot of initiatives where, they have alternative schools for women to actually learn from, and so that they can get into working force faster. And there are initiatives on, gender neutrality, and there are initiatives about health and safety. There are initiatives about empowering women with a skill set, or especially today we also had somebody from VHub, which is again helping women entrepreneurs to succeed in their stories. But one of them which I was really inspired was this initiative where they make movies out of these girls who struggle to actually have that kind of a formal education, but how they overcome that particular thing. They make a small movie out of it, and I think most of these movies are from up north of India, and they empower or they educate the people in and around that area how their life is an example for a girl to be more successful, because it can relate to those people who don't let their girls go to school, or it'll be more relative to people who think that the girls' safety is above everything. If my daughter safety is above her being educated or her being empowered, rather I get her married. This is the mindset most of the time why girls are not given those opportunities. So they make movies where they can relate to these, and then they encourage their own girls to go and go back to formal education. So I really like that particular initiative. So thanks to all the educators here who are actually doing an amazing job to bring in girls and making it more gender neutral society.
So thank you so much for that. I think it's amazing that, especially that we have women educators on the panel today, that we are able to have some sort of empathy in the field to educating and making women more literate. So to Ms. Madhuri Duggirala, so considering women are sensitive, rather than sensitive, I'd like to say observant and introspective. We have strong intuition, and we multitask in nature, especially being a woman as a mother and a businesswoman. So how fruitful do you think a company is to have women leadership?
So firstly, I think an equal world is an enabled world. I think at least in this decade, we should really stop convincing everybody why do we need more women and why do we need more diversity, because there are hundreds of researchers which really prove that be it an economy, be it an industry, be it a corporate, be it a startup, you will not be successful without diversity, and gender diversity is absolutely one of them. First, I thought I'll just share my own brief story, and then I'll probably answer how fruitful it is in the industry as well. So I was born, raised in a lower middle class family. There was no way my father could have afforded an education for me to send to a good school, but I happened to get a computer science seats in Pilani. All my relatives told my dad, don't spend money on her education, get her married. But thankfully my dad said, I will do a registered marriage for her if I don't have money, but I want to, he had 1,000 rupees salary at that point of time. He took 1 lakh loan for me to send me to BITS Pilani, and rest is history. After 20 years, I worked in Microsoft, I worked in startup, I worked in Google, I'm working in Google now, I worked in 3 different countries, I've lived in 4 different countries. All this would not have happened if a few people didn't, and so many people, by the way, donated for my education. That's why I'm a social volunteer. So I say all of this because of few people who believed that if you educate this one girl, like, you know, it will probably be better for her, better for the world. And my learning is, if an ordinary middle class girl like me is educated and can do a few things, now imagine if you really educate and give all the privileges to all the young girls and women in our country, I think India and the world will be really, really successful. So from my own corporate experience, I can say, Kirti, that wherever we have seen, see, gender is one of the diversity dimensions, but for me, I would include LGBTQ or disabilities. There are race, we have people from different races across the world, but only places, like I have run teams where we had people from different gender, different race, and different abilities and special abilities, and that team has done phenomenally well. And let me just leave you with this one point, why? I mean, there are hundreds of reasons, but your consumers are all these people, right? Whatever products, whatever services you're releasing, your consumers are all these people. So that is why only when you educate these people and only when you have these people in the workforce and the startups, you will really see the world really develop. And I like that you corrected that women are not sensitive, but instead they have intuition and multitasking. That's what I want all of us to remember. And like Sinduri said, if you want our next generation of girls and that next generation of girls to do really well, we need to stop stereotyping. We need to stop all of this. Women are emotional, women are sensitive, women are not risk-taking. I really think these are stereotypes of the past. I really think that there are certain strengths women and men and everybody brings, and let us really help them succeed with their strengths. For example, whatever Kirti said, some of them happen to be my strengths. It's not just because I'm a woman, but I have probably high EQ. I can multitask really, really fast. And that has really helped me in my startups, in my own corporates, of doing certain things better. Intuition helps me, makes a few decisions really well. And I don't want to attribute it to only women. I've seen even men doing that as well. But definitely, you do see women displaying some of these characteristics. My only ask always to girls and women is, don't leave all of this at home and go to schools or colleges or industries. Take this along with you. These are your strengths. Only when you take this along with you, corporates and industries, they will realize, and they are realizing the value.
Absolutely, I love that. Normalize women being leaders. Okay. So to Ms. Sinduri Reddy, so you are a managing director at the Premia Academy, and I'd love to ask, was there any gender discrimination starting your startup or working with your startup? If yes, did you face any situation, and how do you think we can avoid gender discrimination and ultimately support women entrepreneurship?
I don't think when it came to the Premia Academy, I faced any gender discrimination, quite honestly speaking, because I think medical fraternity and education fraternity is very women friendly, right? Like Mrs. Meghana had said, it was very welcoming, but I did face a lot of gender discrimination when I was in real estate. When I was in investing, it was always, you're a woman, what would you know? This is a man's world. And I've been told all these things on my face. Yeah, it's not even like they were whispering it and I heard it. They would say it, "Neekem telsamma, velli intlo kucho nuvu," and I'm like, I can't even say anything back to them because that is also judged. So discrimination is something that's very, very real. It's almost a tangible thing that we can touch and feel. But the only way we break away from it, like I said, is to believe that we are already there and march like it will not happen to us. And that's pretty much it. But when it comes to the Premia Academy, I think it's been a blessing all the way through.
Your experiences are so inspiring, and I think definitely what you said, I think that toxicity towards women and women not being leaders has been normalized. So I love your take on that. So this brings us to the last question of the day. So Miss Madhuri Duggirala, so how do you think women in rural areas can be sustainably empowered, and something that which will help them build not only their standard of living, but also their families?
No, that's a very, very pertinent question. But before that, I'll probably share the context of where India is today. And this, you'll find this report in the Bain as well. There are about 6 segments of entrepreneurs. You will have scaled entrepreneurs, you will have urban entrepreneurs, you will have rural entrepreneurs, you will have solo entrepreneurs, and you will have agripreneurs. But if you actually go and look at the numbers, the percentage of women in urban and rural and scaled non-farm businesses are really, really low, very, very low. And unfortunately, it is good progress, but still, unfortunately, a lot of women entrepreneurs are solopreneurs. So we really need to move from that. The significant population is definitely in that rural agripreneurs. Now, before we help them, I'll tell you what are we lacking today. What we are lacking is some of these women do not have access to the right financial mentorship. Some of these women, they do not have, they actually have personal and cultural conundrum and challenges as well. Women going out and working and doing things in the rural areas is very difficult. So the call to action, in my opinion, Kirti, can be in 3-4 things. First, we need to create and celebrate role models. So we need a lot of them from the rural areas. Second is we need to give access to these women specifically to business and tech skills. Internet itself is like really rare for these. So we really need to help them build a few business and tech skills. The sub-bullet of that is we need to help them build some capabilities and provide some mentorship. And the last 2 is probably not what one of us can do, but definitely multiple groups of us in India has to do. I think one is, like I said, access to funds and financial wisdom and practices. And last and most important, we need a few integrated policy framework changes. Otherwise, I think it's very difficult. Now, come to think of it, what they can do, I think they could do a lot. As simple as they're very good at weaving to farming to probably making great food to, we can eliminate some middlemen and have farmers to all of us, or weavers to all of us. All these are possible, but what is missing is role models, networks, access to financial funds, access to skills. And this is a fundamental problem which we need to solve. I think those are the things I feel we need to focus on so that we can really empower women and make them very successful rural entrepreneurs, not just agripreneurs.
For sure. And I think today all 3 of you have not only become my role models, but role models for everyone here. So thank you for coming on the panel today. You've definitely made an impact on all of us.
Thanks, Kirti, for being a great moderator. Please give our young entrepreneur a big round of applause.
It's a pleasure being on your panel, Kirti, and lovely. The way you moderated it's amazing. And thanks for Pavan and his team, Disha, beautifully in her sari, and all the listeners today for encouraging. I think we are the panel who got most applause. Mostly applauded by everybody. Thank you so much, and appreciate that I had a chance to share my thoughts on this platform. Thank you.
Team Metamorphosis, can we hear you all clap for yourselves, please? You'll have outdone yourselves.
All the best.
I would now like to call upon Mr. Pavan to felicitate the panelists. Ms. Sinduri, Reddy. Ms. Madhuri, Duggirala. Ms. Meghana, Musunuri. And our young entrepreneur, Ms. Kirti Vemuri.
do.